Hello and welcome back to yet again another deck design review. This is the final deck video that I'm relisting, as the first few videos I've been posting here were kind of very poor quality. This one is my Bladewing the Risen deck. If you've not seen the original video, there's a few things in here that's changed, but Bladewing's always been important to me. Like my Gwendolyn deck, Bladewing was a creature. This particular card was given to me as a gift. So while I've had him in around a few Rakdos decks, I felt finally obligated to give him his own deck. I'm a rather sentimental thing, and when people give me something, especially if it's a good card, then I always want to find some best use for it. But this is Bladewing. He is on his own, not so good as a general. He is 7 mana, 3 black, red for 4/4 flying. So that by itself kind of sucks. But he has a pseudo shade effect for all dragons, where I can pay black and red and give all dragons +1/+1. But the good stuff is when he enters the battlefield, I get a dragon from my graveyard to play as well. Most of my decks, you've probably seen me running multiple generals. I do that not because I want to pick what's best against particular decks, but I have like 3 different play groups of people I play with. Some are really strong, some of them are down at my local shop, so they're kind of in between, and then I have some people who are really new to the game, so sometimes my decks have different generals. This one, although, if I don't want to play Bladewing, I could play Bladewing, or maybe a Bladewing, or maybe even a Bladewing. This is an entirely Bladewing only deck, so I don't usually play this too often. It's somewhere in between the entertaining deck strength and the middle ground deck strength. It's not very strong, but it's got a lot of late game stuff, so it doesn't have a lot of early presence. I've built Bladewing himself as a dragon tribal, as a combo, as a reanimator, he was even a Rakdos control for a while just because of the colors. This particular version is mostly dragon tribal with a slash of graveyard recursion and a small combo element. So let's stick the Bladewing Eye over here, and let's start with the creatures. As a tribal deck, this essentially started, well, this particular build I just kind of gave up. I actually have, this is the creatures in the deck, but I actually just have this giant pile of foily dragons. I had a collection going, so I chose to just go ahead and make a deck with the best of the best I could. So there's a total of 30 creatures in the deck, 2 of which are not dragons. These are our 2 mana helping dudes. I don't have the Pilgrim Sign here because he doesn't actually accelerate, but these 2 actually help me get lands into play quicker than possible. So we have a Burnished Heart and a Sad Robot. Starting with some of the good stuff, going backwards, usually mana cost, and we'll end with the combo dragon. We start with Dragon Tyrant. You're probably familiar with him if you've ever played a Scion or played against a Scion deck. Double strike, flying trample is fantastic. The upkeep kind of sucks, although. Crimson Hellkite is kind of an older one. A simple X tap to burn for X. I can only spend red mana, though. It's kind of a slowdown on him. He's kind of a filler. For 28 dragons, you'd think for black and red there'd be a lot of really great ones, but sometimes I do have fillers in here. Furnace Dragon is fantastic against specific decks, although I do feel kind of a douchebag playing it. In my play groups right now, one of the competitive ones, there's a Shroom, and one of the friendly ones, there's a Shroom deck. 2 Shroom decks. So this is kind of be a douchebaggy card to play against them. What he does is he has affinity for artifacts, so he may cost 1 or 2 less. For me to cast, I don't have a lot of artifacts in here, but when he enters, he exiles all artifacts. Scourge of Kyr is one of my favorite oldie dragons from the Future Sight block. He has a really great instant speed Pyroclasm. The 6 mana to burn the flyers, although can probably wipe me, but the instant speed Pyroclasm is really cool. Udvara Hellkite is one of my favorite new dragons. She's fantastic in Tribal Dragon. She's really good in Kalia, but in Dragon Tribal, where I probably will have 1 or more dragons out already, she just keeps making little tokens for me. This is basically removal bait, because if an opponent isn't smart enough to remove this or spend their removal now, then I can very quickly overtake the board. Borgin and Hellkite is probably the most commonly well-known dragon in here. If you haven't seen this one, and you probably haven't been playing against too many dragons, the flashy spread 5 damage is just too good not to put in here. Killing Mouth, although, is more of an exotic one. You won't see this outside of Dragon Tribal. Amplify is a fun mechanic from the Legion set. You'll probably see that more on zombies than... I think he's the only dragon with it. What it does is when I cast this, I can reveal a card that... basically, this particular one is Dragon. I can reveal dragons from my hand, and he gets counters per the Amplify quantity when he enters. So if I reveal 2 dragons, he would enter with +6/+6 counters, and then he himself can tap to burn target creature player for the counters. This can be really fun. Of course, he doesn't have haste, which sucks. But again, this is something that is a central removal bait, or he himself gets just really hard to deal with. Balefire Dragon is he's one of the new overpowered dragons. He's called the board wipe dragon for a reason. When he connects, he just burns everything. Giving him lifelink from like Whip of Erebus or something is just fantastic. Thunder Dragon is another one of my favies. He's enter the battlefield, burn all non-flyers for 3. Imperial Hellkite, I really like. I want to like him because it's a morph dragon and it has a tutor effect, and the artwork is kind of really cool. From playing, although, I'm usually not impressed seeing him. Probably will eventually replace him with something better, simply because the morph and tutor is cool, but he's kind of expensive for what you get out of him. Fury-born Hellkite is another somewhat filler. I honestly just wanted to play with him. Bloodthirst 6 means that if I were to get even 1 damage off on you before I cast this during that turn, he would be a 7 mana costing 12/12 flyer. Otherwise, he has no other abilities. Like Trample on him would have been a lot better, and I don't think possibly overpowering. Dragon Mage is really good in this deck because, yeah, I can recycle our hands, but Bladewing, he can pull things from the graveyard. So having every single turn 7 more cards for Bladewing to possibly pick through is definitely a good thing. Shivan Hellkite is another filler. Basically the 2 to burn target creature player without tapping is kind of nifty. I'd rather run the guy from Kamigawa that has the exact same ability and can exile things, but the flying body and dragon type, I suppose, is helpful enough. I'm sure. I think there's actually a new dragon I want to get that just came out that burns when he connects, and if the opponent doesn't have walls, he burns. I think it's going to replace this guy because of the same cost. Nullspine Dragon is another draw tech that's really good with Bladewing. If I have done really good combat damage, I can just dump my hand, give Bladewing some toys in the graveyard, and draw a whole bunch of new cards. Horse Smelter Dragon is kind of the Vishino Heretic of the deck, where instead of burning them, I can just give them a big boost. Another good dragon, if you're running lots and lots and lots of artifacts, is the Furnace one from... I think it has the Phyrexian mana symbol. Anyways, what he does is whenever you can pump him for the number of artifacts, and it's a multiple thing. He's in the sideboard because I sent that giant pile of dragons because I just don't have a lot of artifacts here. Two-Headed Dragon is actually one of my all-time favorite dragons. He's definitely on the top 5 list. It's just a classic card, but people don't recognize how hard it is to block a flyer like this. The pseudo fire breathing is kind of nifty, where instead of red to give it +1/0, it's colors in red to give it +2/0. Just a massive flavorful card. I've always really enjoyed Two-Headed Dragon. Moonveil Dragon, somewhat newish. Well, not really new anymore. I guess that's going on 2 years now. It's got the Perfrost effect, where it's a lot cheaper. I can just give kind of all my guys fire breathing for 1. Hellkite Tyrant can, again, remove someone from the game if there are heavy artifacts. Shroom will need to find some way of killing this before you just win by taking their entire board. Ryusi is a great dragon because it burns on non-flyers when it dies. I really wish they had some way of overriding this for Commander, because there's only 3 legendary red dragons. One of them is Grandeur, one of them is a vanilla hasty flyer. But I mean, if this could just trigger upon, like, it doesn't work when you put it in the command zone. That kind of sucks. I mean, Dragon Tribal would be kind of cool in mono red just because of that. But I always like Ryusi. The entire deck except for 2 creatures fly, so that's a very fantastic ability. Like Ryusi, there's Koku. Everyone likes Koku. I like reanimating Koku whenever possible. It just gives me some life there. Morden is another one that's a filler. I know there's 2 new dragons that just came out, and I'm probably going to replace one of them with Morden, or Morden's going to be replaced. It's got a really slow fire breathing, but it's like the baby version of the Balefire Dragon, where I can have him deal damage to a creature or so, but he has to connect, of course. Hellkite Charger is another classic. You'll usually see this when some kind of sort of Feast and Famine effect, or the green enchantments where you can untap if you connect, so you can take infinite combats, but I didn't really want to do that in this deck, so... Flame Blast is another really well-known dragon because it's got a blaze on a stick, essentially, when he attacks. Steel Hellkite is one of our only ways of actually dealing with enchantments in the deck. Again, this is kind of another EDH staple. It just fits in almost any deck that wants to swing in. It doesn't have to be dragons. Storm Breath is a fantastic dragon. I like protection. Haste is great. Monstrosity is really good multiplayer. A lot of people keep forgetting that it actually hits all opponents. Scourge is another one of my all-time favorite dragons. Not because it's a good dragon, but because it's really good in combo. I used to run a Scion of the Ur-Dragon deck, and a lot of people recognize that, shit, you want to block up or get some defense or kill the Scion before it can attack. What a lot of people don't recognize is that Scion can be easily made into a combo piece with the Rite of Replication. If you turn Scion, or you just have this guy out, and then you Rite of Replication kick it, that's 5 times 6 times 6 damage. Divide as you choose to opponents or creatures. So, I mean, this is... there's a lot of things you can just win by rights kicking, but this is one of the funniest. Skittles is in the deck because it's a dragon tribal. I don't normally like Infect too much, although I do run a goofy Herb-Rask budget Infect deck. It's not really meant to win. This deck would dominate that. Not because of the Infect, but Skittles is just a fantastic card. I mean, the Regenerate, possible Hasty on him, he's pretty cheap. Thundermaw is another just a really overpowering dragon for what it does. I mean, tapping down all potential blockers usually makes me want to hold him till later, especially if I already have 1 or 2 dragons out. Hoarding, the guy who's luckily been reprinted recently, he can go tutor up one of our few artifacts. Then if I have any board wipe or sack effects or something like that, then it's going to give me the artifact right away. A lot of people are smart, although, and will try and bounce or exile him instead. And the final dragon of the deck is our combo piece. I don't try to combo a whole bunch. I will try not to tutor for the combo elements in the deck, but of course, sometimes I don't have a choice. And sometimes it just kind of falls in your lap. War Golden Dragon is great when you look at it. If you don't understand it, though, you might not quite understand what's about to happen to you. So you got 6 for a 7/7 flying trample. That's fantastic. I don't think I've ever swung with War Golden Dragon, so he could be a 1/1 for all I care. What he does when he enters the battlefield, I actually exile everything on my side of the table, including lands. Then when he leaves, everything comes back. So we're going to set him right here for now, and when we get to the other part of the combo, I'll talk about it more. There's not a whole bunch of spells in the deck. I don't like to tutor too much, but I like EDH because the singleton format makes you think that it's more... like you're not consistently seeing the same things over and over again, but sometimes you need to answer for something. So I don't mind running the cheapy tutor so I can tutor for something that's necessary and play it that turn. I don't mind, I am playing Bladewing. I like stuff in my graveyard, so wheels are actually really good in this deck. There's supposed to, yeah, there's a Reforge the Soul over here. I am missing the Wheel of Fate, which will be replacing a card coming up soon. So there is, I will eventually be getting a Wheel of Fate in here as well. I just keep forgetting. Tribal deck, Patriarch's Bidding, sounds fantastic. All those wheel effects, keep dumping everything in the graveyard. Really late game maybe, all those dragons just keep dying. This will get everything back. Does help the opponents if they have creature types as well. Like it some kind of sucks to get the Serenity Angel, whatever the angel is that can remove 3 creatures or permanents or something underneath her. But usually I'll try and hold on to this till I have a really good graveyard. Cauldron Dance is another fun card. I used to put this in all my black-red decks. The mana cost, although, kind of hurts. 6 at instant speed that can only play during combat. What it does is if during combat I can pop a creature from graveyard to play and it gains haste, put a creature from my hand into play and it has haste. Then at end of turn, the one from graveyard goes to my hand, the one from my hand goes to the graveyard. So, I mean, it can create really awesome block times, like a block situation, or if I want to put something specific in my graveyard, or if I just want to have a really good combat. I am playing a semi-recursion deck. There's a lot of stuff going in my graveyard. Might not be able to get Bladewing, or maybe even Bladewing got into my graveyard, so I can Torrent of Souls to get something back. The dual color on this one, I can give it haste and +2 and O's, which is, well, all creatures +2 and O's, so that can be really good. Another way of just getting something back. Maybe if I need to put something specific in the graveyard or anything like that, the flashback could help. And again, stuff in the graveyard. I can actually tutor up the 3 cards I want to put in the graveyard, for example, this guy. Or maybe something else that's just really, really necessary to get in there. I do have 2 wipes in the deck. I don't have an All Is Dust, although now that I remember, I kind of want to put one in here. So we have a Damn It and a Decree. The Decree is always great to just draw you extra cards. Sometimes it doesn't matter if even if I have equal number of creatures, if the quality creatures on the board are better, it might be important to kill them anyways. The enchantments of the deck, although, we'll go ahead and talk about the combo now that we're here. What he does, that exile and flicker thing, you can abuse it in quite a few ways. There's about 3 enchantments out that is a reanimation that enchants the creature in the graveyard. For example, this is one of them. I only have one because the deck I'm trying to foil out and there's only one printed foil. What this particular enchantment does, it enchants a creature in the graveyard, pulls it into play, and as long as the enchantment's in play, the creature stays in play. But with World Gorger Dragon, when he goes in play, he's going to exile the enchantment. So then he will then be the only thing, and then because the enchantment's gone, he goes back to the graveyard, which then returns everything, including the enchantment, so I can retarget World Gorger Dragon. What happens is that creates an infinite cycle of my permanents coming in and out of play. So I get all these enter the battlefield triggers if I have them. I can keep tapping and floating my mana until I have a whole bunch of mana. I can keep doing the cycle until I choose to enchant a different creature. There's a lot of ways you can win with that, like you can do like Perforos. I do have a Warstorm Surge in here coming up, and that's one of the win conditions. I try not to capitalize on the combo too much because I like the idea of just beating face with dragons more than comboing. So my main ways of winning with that is actually through 2 lands, and I'll get to those shortly. It is a dragon tribal deck. I'm very happy they reprinted this. I'm actually running a standard dragon deck right now, which is kind of goofy and it's not intended to be ultra competitive, but it's always fun. So giving all my dudes +3/+3 is a good idea. Necropotence is not supposed to be in the deck anymore. I was going to replace it with an Erebus whenever I remember because I like greed and hard to remove permanents. Necropotence sometimes does backfire when I need to discard something important, for example. But the draw is always fantastic. I'm trying to remove Necropotence from all my decks because it does cause grief, and I'm trying to actually power down a lot of my decks. As I said, I have all these different groups I play with. My strong group, I have some decks that I can play with them, but this deck I don't play with my strong group because it's not strong enough, but cards like this make the other groups not... it gets awkward. But we of course have the Phyrexian Arena. I love the draw. We got the Warstorm Surge. It doesn't just combo great with World Gorger Dragon, it combos with all the dragons because all my creatures are gigantic. So I mean, this is an obvious shoe in there. This could also be a Perforos for smaller damage, but I like this one because it also helps with removal. I have no removal spells in the deck. Then we have the 2 enchantment artifacts, the Whip for lifelink and a little bit of recursion, and the Hasty Hasty. And past that, we will go on to the Few Walkers. I only have 3 in this particular deck. I should be putting a Lily of the Veil back in here, but all my Lily of the Veils I've taken out from modern decks, or a modern deck. But we still have Lily of the Vest. Target player discards a card is always helpful, and so is the Tutorage. It's a graveyard deck, so the negative ultimate there is kind of nifty. Although with such expensive creatures, it's kind of hard to keep the Planeswalkers alive sometimes. This is actually my favorite Liliana. Like, I know Lily of the Veil is probably the strongest Lily, but I like cards that immediately replace themselves, and the option of going and getting my Blood Crypt or Swamps is pretty good. The +X/+X or -X is actually really good, and again, the deck is expensive as hell. A lot of really, really expensive things in here, so the ultimate is another godsend. And finally, Shark in the Mad. He's not really often seen in EDH, unless you're playing Bolus, where he can just automatically make someone discard their hand. He's really going to only be good in Dragon Tribal. I mean, his removal is kind of not that good. He has no way of gaining plus abilities, so getting card advantage off the 0 ability kind of hurts. But since I'm playing Dragon Tribal, the -4 is just, it can be a big swing there. Next we got quite a few artifacts. I am gearing this towards more of a casual group right now, so I don't have a lot of ramp. The games and the groups I'm tiering this one for are actually pretty long, so I'm not trying to race out too fast. But I do need draw, so I got Skull Clamp in here. I don't mind killing my own stuff. Same thing with Memory Jar. This also helps me put some extra junk in my graveyard. The Soul Ring is, of course, my 1-drop. I don't think I have a Wayfarer's Boblin here, which I probably need to get. Yeah, I need to get one. But I do have a couple 2-drops, like I got the Rakdos Signet and the Talisman. And my favorites are the diamonds, of course. The 2-drop diamonds are almost every deck I have. Coalescent Relic is there for a little bit of tempo gain because it's a variable form of accelerant, like once every other turn, I suppose. And the Dynamo is, of course, in here because a lot of stuff is just super expensive to cast. And past that, we're actually down to our lands. The deck actually has a pretty large amount of lands. I usually try to run about 36 to 7 because most of my generals are cheap. Bladewing is like my most expensive general out of all my decks. Tribal, of course I want the Cavernous Souls because this makes my general and 28 cards uncounterable. Ancient Tomb is there because I have really expensive stuff. Bazooka Bog, I am trying to cycle a whole bunch of cards. I don't really want you to have a good graveyard when I Patriarch's Bidding. With the entry and outer triggers like the infinite combo, well, it's not really, the enter and exit combos with World Guardian Dragon, this is the land that will actually let me win the game. When it enters, an opponent loses 1 life, so if my lands are constantly coming in and out of play, I will just drain everybody. Alternatively, I can gain infinite life because my lands are coming in and out of play, and this one gives me 1 life when it enters. I love Lava Claw Reaches. I try and put it on my decks. But then we just have the basic 2-color lands. We've got the Temple and the Blood Crypt and the Buddy Land. Don't normally like running the Tainteds because it requires a card, but in this 2-color deck, it doesn't really matter. Same thing with Shadow Blood. I don't normally like these pay to filter because it doesn't tap for anything on turn 1. I don't have a lot of early turn plays. I don't even have a a Divining Top in here. So I mean, I don't really have a lot of uses for, I mean, it kind of just fits in there. I mean, if I get better lands, eventually it'll get replaced probably. I got the Filter Land and the Pain Land. Then the rest of the lands are the Kami ones. I really like these artworks on them all. And yeah, of course they all match because I'm a big doofus like that. But that is the current rendition of Bladewing. Again, this is, I've been, originally, like, this was a lot stronger before I went straight up Dragon Tribal. Because with Bladewing you only really need just a handful of dragons, and you can do lots of Rakdos, control board wipe, manipulation, and things like that. And then you can just late game Bladewing swing for the win with something ridiculous. The tribal element, although it's pretty fun because, I mean, giant pile of dragons to swing for the win is always interesting as well. That's more for funsies. I always suggest giving Bladewing a try, even if you're not into black-red, even if you don't really care too much about tribal effects. In EDH, everything's always about doing something funny, and he's pretty funny. The recursion element makes him like a dragon version of Shroom, where Shroom just gets artifacts, and he gets dragons back. You can do a conspiracy combo and technically make every creature in your deck a dragon, and he can recur it that way. Like, yeah, there's a lot of fun things you can do. But this is Bladewing. A few things have changed since the original video, but I've taken it down, so there's no biggie there. Again, I don't really like running Necropotence in here since it does hurt sometimes when I need a wheel. But do stay tuned. This is being recorded a little after in 15. So if there's any clever dragons, I know I'm missing the 2 newest ones from the 2 recent blocks. I just haven't actually modified this deck for a while. But yeah, any ideas or comments, I'm always open. Thanks.